Strategy games are great because they don't tell you how to approach a challenge, they just tell you what you need to accomplish, give you some tools and other resources, and let you figure out how to accomplish your goals. Hi, my name is Evan, and I'm currently developing my own indie strategy RPG called Shadowspell Saga Legacy of Blood. One thing that I really enjoy about this particular genre is the diversity of challenges that can be presented. One mission might require you to defeat a bunch of enemies. The next might require you to defend a castle, or capture a castle, or escape from a bunch of really strong enemies. Changing up the map objectives can be a great way to add variety and keep your players invested. So today we're going to jump back into SRPG Studio and take a look at some of the different ways you can challenge your players. So in my last video, we touched briefly on giving your players different ways to beat a map. We're going to go a little more into depth into some of the more common objectives you can present to your players. The most common or simplest one you might find is what you would call a rout map, or where you're simply required to defeat the enemies. You know, you're presented with a bunch of enemies and you have to kill every last one of them. That's pretty easy to do in SRPG Studio. Go up here to our auto events, like we discussed last time. Then you just create an event labeled as the victory event, so you know what it is. And then down here in this window, you can just select whatever parameters you want. In this case, you want to go to the unit total tab, enable unit total, set the total to 0, equal enemy alive. So when there are 0 enemies left alive, this event will trigger, and then you just have to add the chapter complete event off of the battle tab. Chapter complete. Just click that. And then you just choose which map you want to send your player to next. Pretty simple. One thing you do need to be conscious of in this sort of map objective is that if you have certain things that you want to happen, certain story events or whatever, at certain points in the map, you got to make sure that the player can't just defeat all the enemies really, really fast before the things actually happen, and kind of shortcut to the next map. For example, in this map, there's a player character who appears after a certain number of turns. He's a new character that you can recruit. And in theory, if you sweep the map really fast, just defeat all the enemies before he shows up, you wouldn't get to recruit him. You just miss out. So you want to make sure the players can't do that. One thing you can do is just set it up so that there's too many enemies and they're too spread out, so that just so your characters cannot move that far that fast to clear the map before your new characters show up. That's the case with this map. I'm pretty confident that, given the assets you have at your disposal, it's only chapter 3, pretty weak at this point, you probably can't clear the map before the new character arrives. But if you want to really make sure, you just go over to your victory event and add new parameters. So you could just, enable turn, say the character shows up, for example, turn 4. I don't remember what turn he shows up on this map, but say 4. Say enable turn 4 or more. Okay, and then even if the player can somehow eliminate all of the enemies really fast, they still have to wait until turn 4 in order to win the map. That would ensure that you have time for all your events to actually happen. Again, there's pitfalls involved with this as well. You don't want your player to defeat all the enemies and then just wait around for a while with nothing to do. So you got to make sure that there's still enemies showing up. But you could just do something simple and set it so that a couple new enemies arrive every single turn, so there's always someone new to fight. Another thing you could do is you could use, we're going to look at switches. LS right here is for local switches. So local switches only affect this particular map. There's also global switches which affect every single map, but today we'll just worry about the local switches. What you can do is you can just set up say switch for new character. Okay. Then I forget where he shows up. Yeah, this right here. So this is where the new character appears. This event. You would just change the switch. New character is on. You go to victory. Switches. New character is on. So that way, you ensure that the player gets to see everything that the map has to offer. Another very common and very simple map objective that you'll see in this sort of game would be what you would call a seize objective, where you have to get usually a specific character to a specific point on the map, usually like a castle or a throne or something like that, and then they seize it, and that ends the map. Basically, you give them a strategic point, and you got to get your leader there, and then you win. And that's pretty simple to set up as well. Basically, start by going to the database, this first configure tab. You go down to command strings to add the seize command. Normally, this list would just have the check string in it. That's the default, but you can add as many as you want. Obviously, just click create string, type in the name you want. In this case, we'd be doing the seize string. So just make sure you have that added to your list of command strings. And then all you got to do is you just choose the spot that you want the player to capture. Make sure you're in event mode to edit map events, and then you just right click anywhere to add a new event. Custom string seize. So basically, when the player reaches that spot on the map, that specific tile on the map, and brings up their action menu, they would have the option to seize, and they select that, and then of course you can do your typical in chapter thing, chapter complete, choose the next chapter, etc., etc. Typically, most Fire Emblem games that use this objective would require you to use your main character, your lord, your leader, whatever you want to call it. So in that case, you just go active check. It's going to check to see whoever the active character is. Select your main character. And now it's just only Pierre can seize this point. So only the main character can end the map. So pretty easy to set up. This map is technically one that uses seize events, but you have to seize these 5 different forts. So it's going to say seize, and then anyone can do it though, so they'll have their own special dialogue based on whoever's active. And then just increase this variable here. Add 1 to the victory objectives variable. So then you would just go to auto events, and then in this tab here, you just go to the variable tab. You're gonna select, you find it in your menu here, select the victory objectives or whatever you want to call it, and then there's 5 forts to capture, so you're just going to set that to 5. So you just have to do the seize command 5 times. Each time it's going to increase this variable. When the variable is 5, then you're going to go to the next chapter. So it's not a typical seize map. I don't actually have any of the traditional, get your leader to this one point type of seize maps in this game yet. Anyway, I'm sure it'll happen eventually. But this is similar, where you just have to seize the various points around the map, and then you can win. Escape maps are very, very similar to seize maps. They also involve you trying to get a character to a particular point on the map. So in that sense, they're exactly the same. But obviously, they're going to feel a lot different to the player. Obviously, a seize map, you're trying to attack a certain point. In an escape map, you're trying to flee to a certain point for safety. So the story is going to be much different, just based on if you choose to do a seize objective or an escape objective, even though the gameplay is typically going to be the exact same. But you can go again into your command strings, add that escape string. So you can use that instead of C's, so the player knows exactly what's going on. In this case, you have to get to this forest section over here, so each one of these forest tiles is an escape event. This particular map is supposed to be an escape all map, which means every single person in your army has to escape. So how you do that is you just add another tab here. You can add extra tabs to these parameters. So if there's only one player character left on the map, then you reach the tile, you hit escape, and you go to the next chapter. You win. But add the second tab, and then if there's more than one player left alive, this happens instead. The active unit, well, you do this through the battle tab again, change unit state right here. Unit active. Sortie, no sortie. So what that would do is whichever character triggers that event would just be removed from the map and put it back into your barracks, essentially. It erases them without taking them off of your roster. So you just do that, active unit, no sortie, and then you have to make sure to change event state, which is going to be the battle tab again, change event state. Make sure you get the right one. These are the map coordinates, so just figure out the right escape tile, and then you just click it twice to say free, which means that you can basically another character can come along and use that same event. Normally map events can only be used once. If you change the event state to free, then it can be used a second time. So if you want an event to be triggered more than once, make sure you set it to free, otherwise it's just not going to work. So yeah, escape maps, pretty simple to set up. Escape all maps, a little trickier, but still not difficult at all. Defense map is another sort of map objective you can try. It's one that I like a lot to play, but I'll admit they're pretty tricky to actually, set up and make them fun and challenging to do. A defense map, basically just, it's what it sounds like. You just defend a certain area, or you defend your army, or you defend something for a certain number of turns. It's basically just a map with a turn count, and you survive until the turn count is over, and then you move on to the next map automatically. So yeah, really simple to set up. You just go to the victory event that you've created, the parameter tab right here. You're probably going to want the map to end at the end of the enemy phase, so you have to, hang on for that last final attack by the bad guys. But then you're just going to figure out however many turns you want it to run for. This one right now is set to 15. I don't know if it's going to stay there. That might be quite a few turns, or it might be just right. I'm not sure yet. Got to do some play testing. But basically, after the enemy has taken 15 turns, at the end of the enemy phase, then you just automatically go back. You just automatically move on to the next chapter. So yeah, it's very simple in theory to set up, but I've always found them kind of challenging to design, because you got to keep things interesting for the player. You don't want them to just camp out or run away, or avoid the enemy for a few turns and then they win. You got to give them, in my experience, you got to give them some extra objectives to go after. The most enjoyable defense maps are always ones where you can't just kick back, block up a few choke points, and wait it out. Give the players side objectives, maybe some houses to go visit to get goodies, or maybe a new player character to recruit, or in this particular map you have to defend these green allied units. Maybe you could give the option of, if you can kill the boss, you just into the map right away, and don't have to wait out all the turns. For a defense map, I would definitely recommend giving some sort of side objective or incentive to make the player be a little more active, a little more aggressive. Defense maps can be tons of fun, but they can also be really boring if you're not careful with how you set them up. This one is still kind of in the early phases, so I'm sure I'll do a lot of tweaking on it before it's good to go. And then of course we've got the boss requirement, where you simply have to kill the boss of the map and then you win. Typically that's going to be pretty difficult. The boss might be a very powerful enemy, or it might, in this case, be guarded by a whole lot of enemies that you got to fight through to get to him. Figure some way to get around them to take him out. But it's as far as setting up a boss requirement, it's pretty easy. You go to Enemies tab here. These are all the enemies you got. You just figure out which one's going to be the boss. Probably give him a portrait and a name. Makes him a little more memorable. You go down to Unit Events here, and then if you add an event, there's like 3 different types you can add. In this case, we're looking at the dead event. So if the enemy is defeated, you give them some little villain dialogue or whatever, and then chapter complete, next chapter. So very easy to do, very simple. This is, none of these are really that hard to set up, honestly. These are all really basic victory objectives you can do. And I'd recommend using multiples of these if you're making your own game. You don't have to use all of them, but I'd recommend not just making every single map a seize map or a route map or whatever. Give the player some variety, change things up, let them try out a few different tactics and techniques, and just keep things exciting. And of course, if you really want to mix things up, you don't have to limit yourself to just one of these types of objectives for a single map. You can use multiple objective types on one map, and there's a couple ways you can do that. You could, of course, like I talked about in the previous video, just have multiple ways to beat a map, and they give you multiple things out of that. Like you say you rout the enemy, you go to one map. Say you seize the castle on that same map, then you go to a different map where you get a different character or something. Something different happens. Or you can do a multi-phase map where you do one thing and then you have to do another thing. This map, for example, the victory objective you're presented with at the very start of the map is you have to have a character down here make his way to a character up here, and they have to talk to each other. So they have to stand next to each other, and you can create talk events in this tab right here. So you just write your little dialogue here, set up a local switch, turn it on, and then once they've talked to each other and you've got your little story beat, then you just go to your auto events, and then you just have a simple route objective. So talk objective is on, and enemy 0 equal alive. So that's a really, really simple way to do a multi-phase map. Just make sure that you convey clearly to the player what they're expected to do. I do these little objectives, these little messages. So the start of the map, it's gonna just go to narration message and then type in whatever you need the player to do. So at the start of the map, it'll tell you what you have to do and how you lose, and then of course when they do their little talk, then you put up another narration message telling them, hey, your objectives have changed. Now this is what you have to do. So just however you want to convey that to the player, just make sure the player understands how they're expected to proceed and what they have to do. They'll figure out how to make it happen. Don't tell them step by step. Don't hold their hand, say here's how you do this thing. Just say you got to do the thing. I don't care how you do it, just go get it done, and let them figure it out. But yeah, you can take all these different methods that I've walked through in this video, and you can mix them up. You can put your own twist on them. You can come up with all kinds of really cool ways. Let me know in the comments if there's any other sorts of victory conditions that you've seen in this sort of game, or things that you've thought might be cool, or if you've used SRPG Studio. Let me know if you've done any really unique victory conditions for your maps. So that's my little rundown on how to present your players with a variety of interesting map objectives, give them a more interesting play experience, keep them engaged with the game. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment to let me know what you think, or if you're working on your own project, I'd like to hear about it. Be sure to use that link in the description to check out Shadowspell Saga: The Winds of Fate on Steam. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.